Okay, welcome to the webinar on the Digital Competence Assessment Survey and Job Market for Language Teachers, which is a part of the DC4LT Webinar Series. My name is Mikhail Femini, and today with me, I also have Antonio Giordano, Daria Zhukova, and Tur Talmo as core organizers. In this webinar, we will present the results of the Digital Competence Assessment Survey and the job market study we have done. And we are originally three organizers, Antonio, myself, and Daria. But today we have a somewhat external guest to our organizer team, who is Turt. He is marked here as a moderator, but he is also an expert in policies and strategies, the high level perspective to this question. The webinar will have three major parts. The first part, we will speak about the job market, touching also upon the policies. And in the second part, we'll be speaking about the digital competence assessment survey. In the end, we will try to leave enough time for a discussion. So I would like right here to invite Antonio Giordano, who will start with the first part of the webinar and with a short overview of the European and national policies, and also will proceed to the job market study in language teaching.
Thanks, Mikhail. Good morning, everybody. My name is Antonio Giordano, and I represent Pixel, which is a training center which is located in Florence, Italy, and we are currently participating in this interesting project in which we actively participated in this report that we produced about digital competencies in language education. So the starting point was represented by an overview of policies that regulate the development of digital skills for language teachers. We first looked at European policies and then at the national policies in the partners country, which are Norway, Russia, Cyprus, Greece, and Italy. But first of all, at European level, the macro level, what is done and what are the European policies in terms of development of digital skills, in particular for language teachers. At European level, I will first of all mention two main documents, the Europe 2020 strategy and the Shaping Europe 5 Digital Future document. So the Europe 2020 strategy, according to which digital technologies are enablers of a step change in learning and teaching practices. However, they do not guarantee it. To consolidate progress and to ensure scale and sustainability, education institutions need to review their organizational strategies in order to enhance their capacity for innovation and to exploit the full potential of digital technologies and contents. The other document, the Shaping Europe Digital Future document, which was published in February 2020, according to which digital technologies are profoundly changing our daily life, our way of working and doing business, and the way people travel, communicate, and relate with each other. Digital communication, social media interaction, e-commerce, and digital enterprises are steadily transforming our world. So those are, obviously, we could spend the entire webinar speaking about European policies, but I would like to underline all the different steps and all the different levels we have been analyzing within this report. So this is what happens at European level. And then moving from the macro European area to a lower level, we have been analyzing the national policies implemented in the partner countries, again, Norway, Russia, Cyprus, Greece, and Italy. And we found some recurrent elements in how digital education is managed and improved in. What we found is, on one hand, strong echo at the national level about digital education. National policies, usually with high-sounding names and ambitious objectives, aiming at developing digital education. On the other hand, the digitalization strategy is connected to single institutions and persons initiative. Digitalization strategy is anchored in the management. There is a low and I would say sufficient teacher training in digitalization, lack of adequate IT resources and infrastructures, and lags behind EU average and national results in terms of investments in education and digitalization. With a specific focus on language teachers, the main interventions which have been carried out so far at national level, they mainly focus on seeking the involvement of external experts in education and training, providing updates like open educational resources and massive online open courses for language teachers, providing laboratories, workshops with important technologies, and linking curricula to the needs of the labor market. This is, again, just a picture of what is currently happening in all the countries which are the partner countries of the project. So this is the first moment I would like to stop and to listen to your voice and to listen to what is currently happening in your countries in terms of national policies related to digital education and with a specific focus on language teachers. I would like to open discussion and to listen to what is currently happening in your countries. If there is any volunteer, if there is anyone who would like to just mention the national policies and what is currently happening in your countries. Please, the stage is yours and is open. Feel free to intervene.
We have a comment by text. More and more intensive training are being provided. And I think this is more and more, is it a recent phenomena since the start of the pandemic, or is it a longer trend?
Hi, it's Burcu, and I think it's better if I talk, right?
Absolutely,
of course.
Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm connecting from Turkey, and I can talk about the policies here in Turkey. The in-service trainings were carried out in the past as well, but there are more and more in-service trainings on digitalizing education. So because of pandemic, all the classes, primary, secondary, and the higher education are mainly delivered online through virtual environments. And they have noticed that the majority of the teachers are not capable of using LMS or other virtual programs to have the classes. That's why right now they are trying to have the trainings. And apart from that, I'm working at the Faculty of Education. So here in our curriculums, we are adapting our curriculums to include more classes in pre-service teacher education programs to teach them how to use digital tools, how to include more of computer-assisted language learning as well. Thank you.
Can I just ask, because this is quite interesting, and I also see that Alice has commented in the chat that in Brazil they have isolated actions, and this is the same case in Norway. It seems as even though in Norway the policies are, or the higher education institutions are governed by the government, centralized, and they have these big actions that totally complies with what Antonio is stating. But still, according to, we do every second year, the National Agency for Digitalization in Norway, they do this big survey called Digital Conditions in Norway. And what we see, and very clearly back in 2018, which is the latest one, what we see is that it seems as if, even though we have these big words and big strategies, big policies, and we have these clear aims throughout the whole system, from the government down to the institutions, it often ends up with the single person initiative, like in Brazil. Is it the same case in Turkey, or are you providing enough resources, enough external funding, enough governmental support to actually do this, or is it dependent on you doing the initiative and you deciding what to do?
In Turkey, the story is a lot worse, I think, than the other cases, because here the main problem is the resources. The schools have the digital, like the basic digital tools we need. Like, you can start with the computer, internet, and the projectors. But in the east part of Turkey, the students have the resources to reach. So that's why the teachers cannot actually carry out the things they are supposed to do by using these digital tools. The government organizes things for the teachers, like the trainings, plus some promotive activities to encourage the teachers be more involved, like they're attending webinars or trainings, they receive certificates, and in the end, they receive some kind of recognition. I don't know the details much because I'm working at the university. But as I told you, they can't find the platform where to put these into action. So right now, here in Turkey, the government is trying to solve the problem caused by the resources, the lack of the resources on the student end.
Good, thank you. I find this really interesting, and of course there is always a question about resources. But in my opinion, when we start doing strategies and start doing governmental policies for how to implement digital tools and digital processes in institutions or in school, we have to allocate the resources. One of the interesting findings in this research and in the national policies for Norway is that when the teachers were asked if they agree fully or partially in the question that higher education has the responsibility to teach the students or make them develop digital skills, almost 80% agree. They find it extremely important, and one of the most important skills that students need to learn in the 20th century. But when they are asked by the national agency and something, if they can recognize the goals from the government saying that that digital competence is a kind of independent aim for competence, only 33% says that they recognize this statement from the government, which means that there is a big gap between what the government strategy says and what is actually being done at the institutions. I can use our university, the Norwegian University for Science and Technology, as an example, because we are the biggest university in Norway, and we are also governed directly by the central government, and we have our own strategic plan. And it's quite interesting. It was published in 2020, I think, and it's running until 2025. And it's quite interesting to see how few mentionings there are of digital skills and nothing about methodology. Still, at the end of the strategic plan, NTNU states that digital processes, digital tools are essential for reaching every single other aim. And we see now the same as in Turkey when you're saying that you're developing more and more in-service trainings. The same is happening at NTNU now because of the pandemic, of course, but there are no resources allocated at all. You have to do it within your own working hours or use your administrative time, or you have to do it on your spare time to actually develop the skills that are needed. And this makes it difficult. This makes it single teachers initiatives. It makes it makes a hard job to actually anchor anything in the institutions. And I'm guessing that Antonio, you probably have figured something out from your market study on how institutions are trying to solve the problem and trying to get teachers to get more digital skills.
Yeah, absolutely. Just keeping the this kind of topic that is another maybe suggestion. It would be interesting to understand how things will change in the upcoming future or how they changed in the last year, because okay, we are almost all in a kind of lockdown, or anyway, we were obliged to do the teaching on not in presence but online. So maybe if we have the possibility to take advantage from this strange and sometimes dramatic situation, maybe this cause can oblige us to rethink how the way we teach, and can push the governments to rethink about the strategies, the strategies in terms of digitalization and so on. So if it is possible to take some good element from what we are still living in, maybe that could be a kind of definite push towards digitalization, and a greater attention to this by all the actors involved, speaking about the government, speaking about the public bodies, speaking about also teachers. So going back to the topic of this webinar, I mentioned that one of the aspects which was recurrent in all the national policies that we analyzed was a kind of emerging link and need was linking curricula to the needs of the labor market. Is that real? Even more, how does the language teachers labor market look like today? Are digital skills taken into account while looking for a language teacher? Those were the premises of the market study that we carried out. Let's start with the definition. Market study is the process of determining the viability of a new services and products through research conducted directly with potential customers. Market studies allows a company to discover the target market and get opinions and other feedback from consumers about their interest in the product or service. Market studies provides important information which helps to identify and analyze the needs of the market size, and the competition. The same definition can be reshaped according to the main objectives of our project and of the market study that we carried out. Market study is the process of determining the availability of specific skills and competencies through research conducted directly with potential customers. Market studies allows a consortium to discover the target market and get opinions and other feedbacks from both education providers about the needs required by the markets and consumers about their familiarity with the defined skills and competencies. So a market study can provide important information which helps to identify and analyze the need of the market size, and the competition. So how we did this kind of market study? The objective was to analyze the needs of the education markets, and we identified in the available job announcement the best tool to understand whether the emerging needs, availability of digital skills and competencies by language teachers are taken into account or not. Concretely, do the job announcements looking for language teachers mention those digital skills, which seem to be almost mandatory today? Once again, the expected answer would have been yes, but reality went beyond our expectations. The first question we started from within the job market for language teacher was pretty clear. Do the European and national policies in digitalization and education have a direct impact on the language teaching jobs? This question immediately replied to the main objective of the DC4LT project, to explore what digital competencies and skills of language teachers are sought for on the job market. This brought us towards definition of new objectives, to find the share of job announcements for language teachers that require digital competencies or skills, and to categorize the required digital competencies and skills.
Yeah, could I just jump in, Antonio? I'm not that good at using the chat because I'm a language teacher, so I like to talk. So sorry, but this
I prefer this kind of approach. So please.
Oh, that's cool. This is quite interesting, and it's a good approach in my opinion. Looking forward to hearing you explain the methodology, but I have my idea, because this is a natural way of implementing strategies that you actually seek for the correct type of skills in the teachers that you are trying to hire, and this should be done in Norway, at least, I guess. But it might be interesting to hear if somebody listening in, some of the other participants do you have any sense of how this looks in your country, in Turkey or Brazil or Madagascar? I think we have somebody from, or Greece or anywhere. How would it look in? How does it look in your countries when they are searching for language teachers?
I'm not sure if I understood the question. Can you repeat?
Yes. When institutions are hiring language teachers, they publish a job announcement. And what kind of digital skills would they search for? What kind of digital competences would they try to find in the people that they want to hire when hiring a language teacher? Do you know if they have any policies for it or strategies?
I haven't seen such specific references to the digital skills, but the ones that I see mainly like team worker, punctual, motivator kind of things. But there is just one sentence like basic technology use kind of. So
yeah,
maybe in these days they have updated, but I haven't seen such announcements. Sorry.
no, but it's interesting. Anyone else that have the same opinion or that remember some specific skills being sought? Because for me, this what you're saying about Turkey, it's the same in Norway. I would guess that the results would show that it's not the most important thing in a job announcement for a language teacher that they actually have updated and good digital skills, which is weird considering the policies, of course. But looking at the slide, I guess that Antonio will have the answer for this also throughout Europe, I guess.
I've just looked for job offers, and in Germany it seems that there are no specific digital competences looked for unless the teacher is supposed to teach online. But even then, they don't just say you should be interested in online teaching and don't specify any competences.
So is that like the phrasing? Should be interested in digital competence or online teaching? If you have it in front of you and are able to translate.
Well, whether it's online or in presence is organized depending on the needs. The planning is variable, and they expect you to be able to do that. How and what competences that includes is not specified. There's basically nothing, even though the ad is for Sprachlehrerinnen für Online-Unterricht Französisch.
Wow. Okay, cool. Thank you. I think I know that you have some results, Antonio. So I guess you can give us the solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Answer.
And the results are in line with what we just said, because we made this kind of job market study, and there were two different phases of data collection. In both phases, the data were collected country by country because the majority of online platforms list job announcements per country. In phase one, data were collected in partner countries, so again, Norway, Greece, Italy, Cyprus, and Russia. In phase two, the data were collected in France, Spain, Estonia, Germany, Lithuania, and Turkey, for a total of 11 countries. We use country-specific keywords to match the name of the job language teacher or English teacher or Norwegian teacher or similar equivalents. The keywords were used both in English and in local languages. A total of 854 relevant job announcements were taken into account and analyzed according to the following approach: read required qualification in each announcement, select announcements where the required qualifications mention digital skills, and categorize the extracted digital skills. So just to go to numbers, which I think is much more interesting, and what we did and what we found in the job announcement, the most used formulation in the job announcement was a kind of generic mention of some digital competencies or skills without further specification, as experience with, is positive towards the use of digital tools or ICT skills. Then the second most applied team appeared to be old-fashioned competencies and skills that were relevant for technology-based language teaching more than at least 10 years ago. Knowledge of the Office Excel suites, demonstrated experience using a personal computer, or good typing speed and general PC literacy. In addition, the third category, which was found in our job in our research, were the specific skills like knowledge of computer games and positive towards using them in teaching, collaborate with online teacher students via Skype, Viber, WhatsApp, and preparation, implementation, and follow-up of tablet-based, project-oriented, and self-organized learning arrangements. So those kind of requirements were combined within the category specific skills. And that is the evidence that we found, because in every 100 job announcements for language teachers, almost 85% of the job announcements for language teachers do not require digital skills. And I would say this is quite a pity, considering the huge potentialities offered by ICT in language teaching. Only 2% of them refer to specific and updated digital skills, and when specific and updated digital skills are required, anyway, they are not mandatory. 4% of them still refer to old-fashioned digital skills, typing speed, strong skills in PowerPoint, expert in Office, and so on. And 9% of them refer to generic digital skills, as experience with, is positive towards the use of digital tools, ICT skills, and so on. So the fact that 85 out of 100 job announcements for language teacher do not mention digital skills at all brings us to the following questions, for which I have to be honest, we don't have a proper answer, and for which your contribution is really welcome. Why digital skills are not mentioned? Do schools rely on in-house training? How are the policies interpreted? I will leave you with those open questions and with a picture of what we found in the countries that we analyze within this research, with several trends depending on the country. And now I will leave the floor to Michael for some conclusion on this topic. Thanks.
Thank you, Antonio. I think I can go back to this slide with the questions. So when we first found this figure that 85% of job announcements for language teachers do not mention digital skills, we were just guessing, why does this happen? And the possible answers that we could find is that maybe schools and universities, or any institution where the language teachers are working, maybe they rely on in-house training. That was one alternative answer. The other was that they simply interpret the strategies and the policies really on a basic level, or maybe they just don't expect and don't imagine that a language teacher they hire can actually have these digital skills and competences. So if you have any possible answers, also feel free to suggest now in the chat or by voice.
I see that that there are at least 2 people.
That's actually very unfortunate, because I was thinking, maybe because I'm involved in this and because I'm offering the material design and computer technologies in language teaching, maybe that's why I was thinking that there would be more focus, more underlining under this. But another thing I noticed lately, that we were together having an online meeting with the professors from different universities in Turkey who are working at the Department of Foreign Language Teaching to decide on the teacher education program for language teachers. And there, the focus mainly was on methodological courses, courses related to linguistics, courses related to literature integration while teaching language. But there was so little focus on technology. They said there's just one course already there, material design and development. So the content can be provided there. We don't need any other extra classes. So because we were discussing, right, like to have one more where we teach those LMS or other online platforms where the students actually create their content or adapt their content to online teaching. But it didn't receive much attention. People kind of overlooked it. Maybe because it wasn't their expertise and they don't feel qualified enough to be able to offer that. In-house training, yes, it is somehow done because most of the schools are working with publishing houses and they are providing some trainings, free training. So maybe they just rely on that, but seriously, I find it quite unfortunate because at least like the language teachers are the ones who know a foreign language to follow the steps, right? To understand the tools, to be able to, you know, use them in their classes. But other like Turkish language teachers or geography teachers, they don't even know English. So they may not be able to follow or use those tools presented online. So that's why I found it even more interesting to be considered as like not that important in language teaching.
Thank you. I totally agree, and I find it's the same thing in Norway. We have a new strategy for lifelong learning now, and the government is very concerned that publishing houses or private corporations should provide a lot of the courses that we might be looking for, meaning that it's the same as for Alice in Brazil, that you cannot find enough of these courses in the university curriculum. So maybe one idea would be that the university brings it back and takes charge of developing these courses. But is it the same in Germany, Gita?
I must say that I'm actually not working as a language teacher at the moment. I'm working as the person who's trying to implement digital technologies in teaching at an art school. But the problems are probably the same, that people who have not worked with digital tools so far are very, very scared to use them. They feel very stupid and they have no use for them. And because of that, they don't even think about what all the digital tools might entail, what good things they might bring to their teaching, because of course they also have never experienced it. And we have very great difficulties to implement all these digital tools. Nobody wants to use them. Nobody even asks me, how can I use them? Because there's a step missing. And I think we should actually train the students in using the tools so that they can then implement it in their teaching. And then maybe a generation will also want teachers who can use them, who can think digitally, not only use digital tools. I think there's a fundamental difference.
Thank you. I before you get the word, Juliana, I have a small funny story. Like 10, 12 years ago, we introduced the smart boards at the teachers' education. And we did coursing for them, or we made them some courses and had some training with teacher educators, because every school in Trondheim has a smart board in their classrooms. And then 3 weeks later, I got a phone call from one of the teachers attending the training because he was trying to put on a DVD. And he wasn't able to figure out where in the smartboard to put it in. So that's the basic level of some teachers sometimes. So they need some more training. Juliana from Ukraine, you also have something to share about this issue.
Yeah, thanks for giving me word. Good afternoon and good morning, everyone. I'd like to comment something because it's much to write here. So I've been working as a language teacher, exactly as you understood, ASP teacher and AP teacher at the Polytechnical University. And I have to say that in Ukraine, it is not restricted to use or not to use resources. We started doing it maybe 5 years ago. Just it was our initiative, personal initiative, teachers as a department, for example, as a faculty. So we could choose any resource, implement it during our lessons. Nobody forbidden it. It was okay. Moreover, our university really provides us with some trainings, courses, additional, and according to our working contracts, we have to complete such course once a 5 year, and we have to show the certificate about our mastering of some digital or teaching excellence. And duration of this, for the period of this contract, we have to design some e-courses, e-books, or something like that. So it's a position of university, but our universities have some kind of autonomy. So it's not throughout all Ukraine. And I know that a lot of other universities have really great problems, especially during this last year. But now, in my opinion, I think that there are two greatest problems here. First, we really were not taught how to use these resources during our educational initial university background. When I, for example, studied at pedagogical or linguistic university, no one told me how to use these resources. And it is not difficult to find resource. And we teachers, we know how to learn. We have the skills of learning. So it's not difficult for us to learn ourselves. But for novice teachers, it's difficult to comprehend and to connect pedagogy and resource. For example, I cannot just take any kind of game or any kind of virtual tool, and just because it is interesting or exciting to use it. I have to compare my goal of the lesson, my outcomes of the lesson, and find good and appropriate relevant technology. So the question of digital pedagogy and digital didactics, this is a really great issue that we are trying to resolve now. It's very hard because it's a new trend now, and there are not a lot of research, but I think that we can cope with it. And as I am just allowed by you to speak, I want to comment about feedback that you mentioned the question yesterday. We had a questionnaire among our students, whether they like to dislike our teaching with technologies and so on, what are the advantages, disadvantages, and they told that really they liked immediate feedback that technology produced for them. So they do not have to wait for teachers' feedback, for example, when they check their tests, comment on their mistakes and so on. So they formed the test, they got their result, and they know what marks they have. So it was for them like, a main point. And some resources provide explanation for their mistakes. That is also good. If they need some individual consultations or some maybe remarks from the teacher, they can apply to teacher directly. So I think that this immediate and short feedback, sometimes more, more relevant maybe to students than to wait for teacher's consultation. So that's for me. Thanks.
Perfect. Thanks,
Thank you very
Ilana.
much.
We'll see what your survey came up for with the conclusions, Mikael.
Yes, I think we need to continue on our results, but we already, I think, discussed the conclusions. So there's this graph that where Antonio stopped shows the distribution of different kinds of skills or no mention in the countries where we did the study. It also has some limitations. I should mention that we collected the data on a certain period of time of the year, and maybe in some countries, the job announcements from are released or published on a certain point in time before the semester, for example, and we sliced therefore probably either government organization or public organization or sort of unbalanced fare of those. But still, the average should be more or less a correct estimation of the job announcements. Now, the two major conclusions from these studies are that language learning institutions do not expect newly hired teachers to have digital competences and skills, and this is very likely why they are not asking for them, unless with these 15% that do ask them, there are only 2% overall that actually mention very specific skills. And as someone also mentioned in this webinar, this is very often the case when the institution is actually teaching either online or only digitally. So these very specific skills come from the practice. So if the institution is teaching using a specific technology or methodology like online teaching or remote teaching, or they have highly digitalized classroom, they specifically mention we want a teacher who has experience teaching over distance using tools like Zoom and Skype. And apart from these kind of rather exceptions, we found that usually digital skills are not mentioned. And the second conclusion about this categorization really mostly says that the language learning institutions rarely distinguish between different kinds of competences and skills. So 9% is a considerable amount that acknowledge that the digital skills are used and important in this job of a language teacher, but they don't specify what exactly. And usually that means they see it as a nice to have bonus and not as a critical skill that is required. So these are the major conclusions from this study.
It's obvious conclusions, or it's interesting at least. But what about the teachers? Do they believe that it's necessary to have this type of skills? I guess Daria wants to say something about if the teachers, or if it's possible to see if the teachers believe that these skills are necessary to do their job.
Yes, thank you, Tord. Hello, everyone. My name is Daria. I represent ITMA University from Russia. Actually, we could hear today what teachers think. Thank you for your comments during the first part of the presentation. And here I would like to give you more details about the competence assessment survey for language teachers. So what they actually think, what we found out their opinion is. We aim to find out 5 following things. What instructional models do they use in computer-supported language learning, and what their general attitude towards use of digital tech was, how language teachers assessed their digital competence level at that moment, and actually how satisfied they were with this level and what kind of training they would like to get, if any. And finally, we asked them about their institutional aid, the question we just discussed before. Do they actually get it? And if they do, then in what, to what extent? But let me start with the methodology overview first. So how did we get our data? So our survey was initially designed to address 2 target groups: language teachers themselves and administrators or policymakers in the field of language learning. However, the vast majority of the respondents, 91%, turned out to be language teachers. This is why the data we further considered and descriptively analyzed were received from the language teachers. The whole survey consisted of 48 questions structured in 8 topics that you could see below. So we specifically wanted to know their background, personal and professional, level of the teaching, the language learning instructional models they use, and also their general attitude toward digital tech, their competencies in digital language teaching, satisfaction with digital competences training and required improvement, if any, again. Institutional support for enhancing digital competencies, and institutional aid for personal development towards digital competencies. So as far as their background is concerned, our respondents were mainly female, of 35 plus years old. Their highest level of education in most of the cases was master's or PhD. So they are quite well educated, and they were representatives of 43 countries in total. However, you could see from the first graph that almost 1/3 of the respondents were from Russia. So it could be a possible limitation for the results that we gained through this research. The respondents taught language to the students for whom this language was the second language number 2. And predominantly they all, well, most of them used face-to-face teaching mode. However, blended and online distance instructional models were also very popular. I would like to draw your attention to the fact that these data were gained before the pandemic in 2019. So now the results could be different in that sense, because I guess 100% of the teachers nowadays has to teach online, remotely, or at least in blended mode. So we asked the respondents about the instructional models they use, and we listed 10 the most widely used or popular to our mind models. And we also asked which of them they used as core methodology, which of them as auxiliary methodology, and if they do not use it at all, then why? And interestingly enough, you can see here that if they don't use certain methodology, then they state their need for education, for training in that particular module in order to use it. You can see that 2 methodologies were stated as the most preferred core methodologies. These are content-based language learning and task-based learning, while project-based language learning and game-based language learning were chosen as the most popular auxiliary methodologies. Their general attitude towards digital technology in language teaching was shown as positive, as you could see from the graph on the left, while their attitude towards the role digital technologies play in the students' progress is not that confident, I would say, which could possibly mean that the potential the digital technology have in language learning is not fully reached for now.
Could I
Sure.
just stop you for a second, Dara? Could you go back one slide?
Sure. This one?
Yeah, because I found these results quite interesting, seeing that teachers are very positive towards using digital technologies in their personal language practice.
Yeah.
But they're not that positive when they're asked if they think it's important or the role the digital technologies play in the students' progress. I don't know if you have you reflected anything upon it, or could this also be one of the reasons or another indications that they're not receiving enough training, or they don't see the effect because they don't know the tools enough? Maybe.
Probably it could be, yes. That could be one of the reasons. But what about the teachers that are present now with us? What do you think about it? How do you feel about the role that technologies play in your students' progress? Could you?
Yes. Yeah. Hello, everyone. Okay. Actually, it's quite important to incorporate digital technology in our teaching. The fact that others are not positive about it is because there's just too much sometimes. Sometimes it complicates work, and sometimes the connectivity issues really ruin every plan, every preparation. And this is probably also on the part of students where they have very low IT skills. So even though the teachers might have had that high digital competencies, what about the students? So they cannot enforce something right there and then during their teaching during the process of their teaching when the students lack IT skills. And the reason why everyone resorts to the non-digital is because it is more spontaneous, probably, unlike when you have digital technologies that really, as I have said, ruin all preparation. So the amount of preparation is not a guarantee that you're going to be successful at teaching sometimes. Although I agree that digital technology really speeds up a lot of our work, it's very versatile, it makes really authentic activities in our classrooms, it really engages the students. So what can we ask for? If that is only if, I think, all technologies cooperate with you. You know what I mean? So
thank you for this comment. Thank you very much. This is a very good point. What about the students? What do they know? How proficient are they in receiving knowledge with using digital technologies? But maybe that's a question for the further research.
Yeah, I think the data shows also something that in this particular difference, the more people are positive towards using, but less people are positive towards what positive effect it makes. So people want to use it, probably, but they are not yet sure that technology actually give them enough benefit. So maybe they see it that, yes, I need to use it so that I become better. And after some time, it will give even more benefit. I think that could be one of the explanations.
I agree with you, Mikael, but and I think it's very complex. If it had been easy, it hadn't been any point in researching it, I guess. But I do believe that it has some connection to the way policies and strategies are being implemented also, because the more confident the teacher, I agree with the students need to be confident also, but the more confident the teacher is within his or her own digital competency, the easier it is to implement tools that actually work and that actually fits your methodology when you're doing in class. And if you're able to do that, I believe that there are a lot of technology out there that is useful also for a language teacher to actually make the students learn more. But yeah, sorry, Daria, I'll let you continue.
No, not at all. Thank you. So let's proceed and have a look at the view of the respondents, how they actually assessed their level of digital competence. So they stated that they were mostly intermediate, and they were quite interested in the training for advanced level to develop their skills, to improve them. We asked them directly whether they are satisfied with the level of expertise they have. And as you can see, only 28% said that yes, while 71% said that no, they are not very excited about this. We also asked why they need it and how do they actually use digital technologies. And it turned out that in their daily practice, the teachers use digital technologies mostly for communication and collaboration, for professional development, and for record keeping. Moreover, 66% of the respondents instruct students on the use of digital technologies implemented in the classroom. And this is basically reflect the comment we have just received that the teachers still have to, let's say, educate the students as they teach the subject, the discipline itself. About the required improvement, we asked what kind of training the participants are interested in, and this is advanced mostly training, and they preferred blended or online format for that mostly. However, again, I would like to repeat that the data were gained before the pandemic, so probably numbers would be even higher for online or distance learning today. The motivation of the teachers behind getting this training is positive to my mind. They really want to gain new knowledge and skills, and the certification, a good line in CV goes way behind, which is a positive result to my mind. Also, we asked about institutional support for enhancing digital competence, particularly does your employing institution organize or host digital literacy training? And it turned out that only half of the employers actually organized some training, and even those who did it randomly, irregularly, or as rarely as once a year. At the same time, the teachers who actually participated in trainings, they said that the knowledge they gained were very useful for them, and 63% of them implemented it into their daily teaching practice. We also were interested what employing institution could do to achieve a higher level of digital language teaching experience of their employees apart from training. And as you can see, all the alternatives or options that we suggested here were quite popular among the respondents. Maybe the most leading were allocating working hours for language teacher digital literacy development. So just give us some time for development, and also arrangement of a technical support service. We made 5 major conclusions from the survey, from our research, and we present them here in the same fashion as the conclusion for the first part. So one of the main questions was, what instructional models do language teachers use in their computer-supported language learning? They actually use multiple and varied instructional models, content-based and task-based learning as their core methodology, and project-based and collaborative language learning also as their auxiliary, mostly some core methodology. About their attitude towards digital tech. So they generally have positive attitude toward digital technologies, and have at least basic digital skills. So they could describe themselves as intermediate, mostly, or pre-intermediate users of technologies.
Daria, can I ask you to go back to the second conclusion for a second? I wanted to also mention that the target group in this study, we have quite many respondents that work in universities compared to, for example, those who work in schools, and that could have affected some of the results. For example, in our study, we did not confirm some of the data that came from the survey of schools, where they only looked at the school teachers. So our conclusions are slightly different. And I think that our target group is one of the factors that contributed. Also like here in this particular conclusion, you see that pre-intermediate and intermediate have quite big shares of what kind of skills the language teachers think they have. And we actually defined quite detailed what does pre-intermediate mean, what does intermediate means, and advanced and proficient as well.
Thank you, Mikhail. So our third conclusion about how language teachers assess their digital competence level is that they are not actually satisfied with the level they have, and they actually require the improvement of that, or at least they think they need to have training. Further, their need is to get the training for advanced skills on average, which we mentioned before. And yes, interestingly enough, the most preferable means of training would be experience exchange sessions for the teachers, apart from other options.
Can I ask again, Daria? Because
yes.
The conclusion seems fair to me. I'm a language teacher myself, and this looks like language teachers. And yeah, okay, here comes the answer. What I was going to ask. I was just wondering, because what we saw in the policies is that is not reflected into the institutions. And I would guess that the teachers are not satisfied with the training that they are provided in-house or by the university or by the higher education institution or other schools. But I can see that you already have the slide, so I'll just shut up and leave it for you. Sorry.
Sorry, Tord. No, actually, as we could see, yes, the language teachers actually receive some support from their institution employers. At least half of the respondents do get it. And only 8% receive such training during the onboarding process. So it doesn't actually give us the straight reply to the question why they do not require the newcomers to have it right away. The teachers actually think that generally the knowledge, the digital skills, new skills that they get thanks to the training are very useful, and they implement into their daily practice right away. Yes, so basically we kind of covered it all, but if you have any questions, or maybe I haven't answered some of your possible questions during my speech, go ahead. Or maybe there is something that I mentioned and you could actually relate it to your practice, or on the contrary, you may find it not very relevant for you, for your situation.
We could go back to, because there has been a lot of comments in the chat, especially about the question where that we commented on earlier, both from Mike and Alice, who is not Alice, he is Marcelo.
Which slide do you refer to?
Number, yeah, I don't remember the number, but the one with the teacher's attitude.
This one.
Yeah. So that there were, I think it was Mike who said that it might be some misinterpretation there, that teachers had relied on everything else being as effective as the digital technologies. So there were some interesting comments here. I don't know if anybody want to discuss it more, or if you have any other questions or comments. I just wanted to say, because I guess Mikael will wrap it up in a while, but I just want to say that I really enjoyed the discussion about policies, and really enjoyed getting input from you guys from countries that I don't know anything about, and which is outside the consortium, so we haven't investigated them. I will try and put up a short discussion forum or a question in the classroom, where we could exchange some more ideas and see if there are possible interesting opportunities to do some research in the future if anybody is interested. So keep an eye out for this session in the classroom, and we'll try to elaborate more on the discussion. And now Mike has raised his hand, so we want to comment.
Yes, staying on this attitude slide, I mentioned in the chat the possibility of doing a cross-tabulation. And I wonder if, well, I don't know if you did do a cross-tabulation, but perhaps it would be revealing about, for instance, two distinct, if you like, clusters. That there may be some people who are both very positive and very positive about the effect on students' progress, and others who are very positive, but less confident in the students' progress. And that would be an interesting point for further research. I mean, for instance, digital tech is a very broad term, and one might delve deeper into which types of digital tech they are using.
I totally agree, Mike. And as far as I remember, it was discussed, at least on some of the questions. We were discussing doing cross tabulations, and we were also discussing the opportunity of doing some qualitative interviews with some of the people if there were interesting results. But I don't know. Do you remember, or have you done this, Mikael? Do you have anything on it?
Yes, if you give me 30 seconds, I will show you one of the cross-tabulation pictures.
We have 30 seconds.
Now, while I'm actually looking for it, I wanted to mention that one of the ways to continue this would be to repeat the survey in a post-pandemic or ongoing pandemic situation. So we're planning to relaunch it almost without changes. We cannot, of course, get the same respondents to provide us the answers, but we want to relaunch it and see if, where the data shows us the biggest differences. And maybe Daria and Turt, you can also speak a little bit about the publications and the report that we have done with these results.
No, but if you go into the session, the workshop, which you find in the G Suite, you can find one icon saying publications reporting the results of these studies. So we have the official report made by the consortium, the DC4LT, which is published on our website, dc4lt.eu, where you can find all the results and all the interpretations. And then we've also already done a lot of articles presented in several conferences on this material, which we see that we could do even more on if we're able to do this cross tabulation and everything. So it might be interesting and at least when we get the results from the new survey, we've presented and published a spring publication in the conference HCI in 2020 last summer, called Digital Competences for Language Teachers. Do employers seek the skills needed from language teachers today? We also did a smaller publication at the INTED 2020 conference called Digital Searchlight, a study on digital skills being sought amongst language teachers. And we are currently working on a Digital Searchlight 2 article with different institutions. There are 2 more papers to appear, both in HCI 2021, which is to be held in Washington, or was to be held in Washington in July this year. The one is called Digital Competence Assessment Survey for Language Teachers, and the other paper is called Learning Theories and Teaching Methodologies for the Design of Training in Digital Competence for Language Teachers, a narrative review. So you can find a lot of stuff on this content that we have tried to cram and present in a short version here today. And of course, you can always contact us both individually and preferably as a consortium on DC4LT, both if you have interesting ideas for further research, future research projects, or if you just want to have a chat and a discussion about the results that we already obtained. So yeah.
Thank you for this presentation, Turt. Actually, I found that one of these graphs is in the report. This is the question: the role digital technology play in the student progress, and this is a breakdown to what kind of training the respondents mark they want to have. I was not sure how to interpret all that. I did not see like a super clear trend that is visible on this graph, but maybe Turt, did you mention, or Daria, did you see something that is very telling?
No, as far as I remember, we didn't find the extremely interesting correlations, and also we started doing this work a bit late, so we were a bit into the article and the report. So we decided to keep it as far as I remember, and do a follow-up survey like we're.
Yes, but we definitely will have a closer look at this question during our follow-up survey.
And I think what Mike mentioned is we could discover 2 clusters, and I think one of them is perhaps smaller over here on the extreme positive side. 18%, or is it? No, it's number of respondents actually need proficient training. So they need the most advanced training that from the options we gave them. So they are both very positive in the progress. So they probably realize the fullest potential of technology, and they still want more.
This is basically, yes, the finding that we made, that the more proficient users of the digital technologies a teacher is, the better he or she sees its benefits, both in the practice or in their students' progress. Mike, did we answer at least partially your question?
Yes, that certainly looks very interesting. I kind of
Suddenly.
yeah, and that looks as if it's significant.
Yes, but I don't think we in the report are making any big conclusions here, because it's really 18 people from 270 who are in this particular little group. Yeah,
absolutely, and there would have to be reservations about the sampling and such like. It's
all right. I think we are through the material we prepared, and I think we managed to organize also a nice discussion. I'm very happy to hear voices from different countries, and that gave us some further ideas what we can do in the project and how we can also progress the research. I hope it was also interesting to all of you who are participating.